let's have a look at using Docker with some IBM Rational Solutions. To begin, we'll use Docker in a typical fashion. So running on my local machine here, I've boot Docker, and I can build an image when I have a Docker file with the build command. And then I can then run the image with the run command. This gives me a running container with some mapped ports where I can see my application. Here's my running application. If I want to share that image, I'm going to push it to a registry. So first I'll tag it with the private registry name. Then I'll push that image to the registry, and the registry is a means by which others can get access to my built image so they can run it. So switching gears, if I now want to run that image, say in production, I'm going to use the pull command and give it the registry and the image name. This is going to get me the latest version of the application, and then I can run the image in a similar way that one would from the local desktop machine. So now I've successfully built a new version of the application, packaged it as Docker, shared it with the registry so it can then be run in production. Using Docker is an effective way to package and share and run applications, but we want to set up a pipeline that takes a change, runs it through some tests, and puts a little bit more control about what versions are deployed to production or shared externally. So in IBM Urban Code Deploy, we've set up an application and we've set up a set of environments that make up our pipeline. Currently this just has a single microservice that is packaged as a Docker application. And we've set up a few environmental gates so that the production server must have a status of functional regression passed, and the same is true when we share that publicly with Docker Hub. If I look at the public Docker Hub, we've also put an approval process in place that will notify via email and set up an approval record that must be confirmed before we deliver it. And now, rather than logging into machines and running the various Docker commands and making sure I get that right, I can run a process. So in the private Docker registry, I want to build and test that process. So I'm going to run the build, test, and push. What this will do is this will build all the images, run a set of tests, and set the right functional status on that particular version. If I'm deploying to production, it's a similar step, except I'm running just the pull and run, and only versions that have passed the functional regression will be available for me to select here. In a similar fashion with publishing to the public Docker Hub, we're going to run a publish process. Will only allow good versions, and in addition it's going to set up an approval record which needs to be completed before the process will be run. So using IBM Urban Code Deploy, we can effectively define the environments that we want to push application changes through, and then put the appropriate controls that will allow for a continuous deployment process using Docker. In the next experiment, we want to look to see if we can package an IBM Urban Code Deploy agent with a Docker image, and then start up a set of those images to define an environment that IBM Urban Code Deploy can then target. In this way, we can very quickly stand up resources that we can run with IBM Urban Code Deploy. So I've built a UCD agent image. This contains the image for the UCD agent, and then it takes in environmental parameters defining the server that it wants to connect to. So here I'm defining that this agent should come up and automatically connect to UDeploy 04 with the following agent name. If I start the script, this will result in 3 running agents that we should see defined in Urban Code Deploy. Switching over to Urban Code Deploy, environments are defined by a set of resources. So I'm going to search for the resources and wait for the agent to come up. I am now running the Urban Code Deploy agent, and it has successfully connected to the UCD server. So let's look to see if they're now defined. And we can see I have 3 new agent resources that are online that I can now use to create an environment and deploy applications to. Now we're going to take this a step further and run a DevOps solution using Docker containers. So we'll have a Docker image for IBM Collaborative Lifecycle Management, one for an IBM Urban Code Deploy server, and then the Urban Code Deploy agent. Additionally, we can also run a microservice out in front of these. So I've defined a set of Docker files for each of those pieces, and we can build the images with the build command. And then we can start each of those with the run command. In this case, I'm also mapping specific ports for each of the applications. So now I have a set of running containers for the UCD server and agents. The CLM server is also running a UCD agent so that it can connect. So if I check the logs of the UCD server, I can see that the server is started and that it has 4 agents that have connected to it. Similarly, I'll check the logs of the CLM server, and my server has completed. So I'll start with checking CLM. And I can log in and go through my JTS setup. Next, let me check Urban Code Deploy. If I go to the resources and to the agents, I can see that I have 4 agents running. I have one locally on the UCD server, then I have 2 remote agents that I can use to create environments, and I have a 4th which is running on the CLM server so that I can run processes against the CLM server. So far we've been looking at how to use Docker on-premise, so to speak, with on-premise products like IBM Urban Code Deploy. Now we'll take a quick look at how we could collaborate on an application using IBM DevOps services to publish a Docker container to a registry running on SoftLayer and to stand up applications running on a Docker host in SoftLayer. So under my DevOps services, I have a project which I'm collaborating on with Michael Callenter. And in the build and deploy steps, he has defined a shell script builder, which is going to build and publish a Docker image to the registry. So we can see the registry is running here on SoftLayer. And then the deployer step is going to publish or to start a running container pulling an image from that registry. And we see the basic application running there. That concludes these quick demos on some experiments using Docker with IBM Rational Solutions. There's more details available on my blog at robbieminchell@blogspot.com, and thanks for taking the time.